Alright, another in Mindum video on the economic stuff again. Um, really shouldn't bother, but I mean, it's sort of a really important subject. In the new, so the Mystic, he's deleted the old videos and all the comments that he didn't respond to. So I'll read a couple of the comments that he didn't respond to. And so he's broadened the argument to the bigger picture war that's this generational war, or more specifically, it's a war between the people who have inherited a lot of money and continue to do so, these elite people, and regular working class people who, in the 1960s, the working class was getting richer and the rich were getting less rich. And in the 2010s, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and the workers getting poorer, and everybody's getting poorer except the rich, except the people with investment capital, um, because they don't pay the same tax rate on their profits. Their industry, their work is taxed at a much lower rate, insanely lower rate. Anyway, uh, and yeah, there's just all these rackets, all these rigs in the systems. So in the 70s, people started figuring out what was happening. Let's say more specifically the 80s, the Reagan deficits. And people started talking about the fact that this deficit spending thing is not a good idea. And it was usually conservatives. And the irony is. But I think what the conservatives figured out is in the short term it's a bad idea, but in the long term it's a great idea, because all the interest on the debt is paid to rich people and makes rich people richer in the end, as long as it can be paid. And what I think many people in the 80s thought was, well, you can't really have an insanely high credit card bill because eventually it's going to kill you. The interest rates are going to consume you. And that was sort of happening in the 90s, the 80s, going into the 90s. And then the internet just had a little bubble that screwed everything up and confused everybody. But the real trend was that you can't have high interest rates because we have so much debt that there's no way to finance the debt if interest rates go up, or if interest rates even stayed at 3 or 4 or 5%. The burden of the federal government then gets into the trillions of dollars, $1 trillion anyway, in just interest payments. So half of the revenue collected in taxes would have to be paid to the rich to finance the debt. You couldn't do anything productive with it. You can't pay Social Security checks, you can't pay to build hospitals, you can't build Hoover dams. You're just paying rich people for owning capital that you borrowed. And so now in the 2000s, they figured out, well, this interest rate thing is going to kill us. So they had to create mechanisms to destroy interest rates, because obviously you can't have interest rates and huge debt. So that's basically saying that you have a huge credit card debt, the interest rates were going up sky high, and it was making the debt grow instead of shrink because you had so high an interest burden. So now we've refinanced the credit card where at least we've gotten the interest off of the debt, but we still have the huge debt. And we have to live with a future where interest rates can never go up again, because the government becomes bankrupt if interest rates go up. So they really can't go up. It just can't happen in a way, practically, without a huge break in the economy. So what happened in 2010 on is they came up with gimmicks to hide the national debt and to form it in shapes that have lower interest rates, not real market rates, because they can't afford real interest rates. And so that's why there's money in the reserve accounts. It's because it's essentially just borrowed money. Checks were written as if the bank was giving us a loan. It purchased things with bank money, and we're just promising that you can have the money eventually, or we'll just unpurchase. Essentially, we'll put stuff back on the market and give you the money. And the stuff going back on the market are these equities, these bonds, which are the same things as stocks realistically. If you have a bondholder that owns $1 billion worth of bond, and you buy it off of him, and you give him $1 billion in cash, he's going to put the cash in some other equity, some other stock, some other bond. He's going to buy paper. All right, so he's going to inflate the stock market. And that's all this racket was for. And this phony, mystic idiot is pretending he doesn't understand that these rigs and these gimmicks were designed by people whose motives were clear. Protect the rich. Don't protect wages. Don't protect workers. Protect the rich. And that's all this was ever about. Stop the rich from feeling the pain of their bad loans, their bad practices, their greed and their gluttony, their huge gains that they made on risky adventures, and now they don't pay for it. They don't pay for their risk. We protect them from their risk while you force the average American to go into a bankruptcy court and get no protection. And we see how the Donald Trump gets huge protections. None of his personal assets are ever touched. We don't have any of those luxuries. We're not allowed to walk into bankruptcy court and say, I'm a corporation, and when I did that deal working on that guy's house over there, well, that had nothing to do with my real life. Okay, so I have no liability. It's like stock owners. You finance companies like, in India, they go into India and poison, 800 people and kill them. You have no liability. The stockholders, they're the ones that finance the company. They're the ones that basically put the CEOs in charge who committed the murder, and yet they have no liability, the stockholders. They lose a little bit of money because their stock value went down, but they have none of the liability. The dead people don't get to sue the owners of the company. I mean, it's just, this whole system has been rigged for the rich. And the Democratic people have to figure out that their Democratic Party has elitist rich fuckers running it. And they're not on your side. That's why they're shoving all this that's why they're cramming all this immigrant crap into the Democratic ideology. Like somehow the immigrants are more important than stopping what the rich are doing. And they're all bought into it, like the Hillary Clintons and everybody else who runs in the Democratic Party. They're all a bunch of capitalists who are running the same racket on us. It's Obama. Obama hid his deficit by increasing the money in the Federal Reserve by $2 trillion. He hid $2 trillion of his deficit spending by shoving it into that Federal Reserve accounts. So he just saw Bush do it and he said, I can do that. It's mostly Obama's debt. Hidden. He pretended, well, my deficits were half as bad as Bush's. No, they weren't, because you hid it by stealing the money, by doing this fake borrowing in these fake accounts. And we're not even going to get on to the whole, the bullshit that was, that no one's called out, the FDIC insurance that basically just insured absolute junk stock certificates. They protected stockholders. They protected the banks. The banks owned a ton of bad mortgages, and the government said, we'll buy them from you, and then we'll sell them back to you guaranteed. So, yes, it's absolute garbage, and you can own it without any liability, because it's not going to be called garbage, because we'll guarantee the garbage. That's all they did. They took toxic waste and they just wrote on top of the toxic waste Wonderland and just said, let's just pretend it's not toxic waste when it is. And these are just overt lies, overt gimmicks, overt deceptions to protect one interest and one interest only, the rich, the stockholders. That's all any of the gimmicks were for, and this asshole is pretending, no, us older people aren't fucking the next generation. We're not screwing them completely over for our short-term gains. We're not creating a racket system that basically puts all of the liabilities on the future, and we do nothing. We do no nest building, no investment in the country, no investment in the infrastructure. We just steal it all so we can live like gluttonous pigs and eat our fucking cheese, our European fucking cheese, and pretend you're decent human beings. No, you are scum. You are fucking scum. And there needs to be a damn generational warfare. Yeah, it's time. Way past time. And the problem is that you are so invidious and insidious a monster that you have your fake liberals, your rich liberals, sitting there defining our revolution. And the revolutionaries and the Democrats are a little too stupid to figure out no rich man can be trusted. None of them. Never elect a man who has money, because he won't be thinking of your interests. You know, they got to figure out that these rich Democrats are just traitorous. What do you call those spies? There's fucking spies, okay, who have invaded your Democratic Party and perverted it, turned it upside down, where you don't even understand that flooding a bunch of unskilled labor into the country is going to destroy your wages. You can't even figure that out. You're so fucking blinded by their pretty suits and oh, he speaks so well. Yeah, and he's shoving the frickin' cow prod up your asses. You know, you're so frickin' stupid. All right, so this fucking piece of shit is just making all these excuses for this overt theft from the poor to the rich. All the liabilities dumped on the working man now. You know, why we give huge tax breaks to the richest people on earth. A disgusting, oh yeah, this is good policy somehow. No, this is exactly just theft. They're so greedy. They are so rich, and they can't stand that they're not richer. They're just like Donald Trump. If you give him $10 billion, he wants 20. You give him 20, he wants 40. Their insatiable appetite, their gluttony is insane. They're not satisfied that they have stolen enough from you. They want to steal it all. Ugh. Alright, so let's play this crap from this fucking moron. And then I'll read some of his idiotic, inane comments. So, in this video, this is SNB, so that means Swiss National Bank. So that's the same thing as FEB. You know, that's the same thing as Fed. I mean, FED. All right. So they're just talking about the Swiss National Banks doing the same thing that our traditional Fed did. Okay. All the banks have accounts in the Fed. They just, you know, this bank issues a check. This bank cashes it. They make the cash transfers in the Fed. The Fed account was that little low line I showed in the other video. I really shouldn't have to load that again, but the Fed line is like this for 60 years, and in 2010 it goes like this, and it's here at $4.4 trillion. And so the Swiss guy is just making the discussion about what the Fed traditionally was. He's not talking about what it is now, where they hide deficit spending in the Fed. $5 trillion of deficit spending where they bought commercial assets off the market, not to control the amount of currency in the economy, not to protect the cash and make sure cash stays valuable, not as a hedge against inflation. They did it for one reason, to inflate the stock market. No other reason. That's what it was for. The function of the Fed is now no longer has anything to do with protecting you from inflation. Their function is keep that market line going up. That's their function. They only care about the rich, and that's it. You don't count. But listen to this fucking idiot defend these banksters.
The word problems. It's caused distortions in the outside world, outside the castle. In our world, it's caused distortions.
And what does he mean by distortions? Oh, that's right. Huge amounts of debt that are going to be taxing the working man at 40% to be paid in the future and taxing the rich at 20%. That's the distortion, the obvious distortion. Gimmicks for the rich. Donald Trump didn't pay any federal income tax for the last 20 years, yet he claims to own $9 billion in assets. That's the lie at first, but even if it were true, can you find that acceptable? You don't pay any federal income tax for 20 years while you control $9 billion in assets? That's their world they've created right in front of our faces, and he's pretending it's honest. They're just trying to honestly protect the economy. They're honestly trying to protect the rich, and only the rich.
The next thing to understand, I think, and this is where I think it's important to maintain perspective. And not
yeah. And his perspective is he was dildoed frequently by the rich. They coddled him and stroked his scrotum and twiddled his anus, and he's just a whore for it. He's a fucking hooker for the rich. He's their fucking goddamn pussy, and he thinks he's the house slave. That's all he is. Yes, master, thank you for giving me almost nothing. That's so much more than absolutely nothing.
Get excited.
Well, and of course he took advantage of it. He never paid taxes. So yeah, he saved all his money because he lived in their house and he lived on their luxury. He didn't have to finance his own life in the real world. He lived in his little sheltered world where he could become a privileged fuck. A stinking capitalist engineering ways to make money without really working.
About us and them and all sorts of weird conspiracy theories.
Yeah, there's no conspiracy. It's right out in the open. It couldn't be more fucking obvious. The tax code is, like I said, Donald Trump runs on this idea of fair taxation, smaller tax code, less complicated. What does he give us? More complicated, more gimmicks, more shystery. Now rich people can declare themselves a company and just say, I'll only pay 20% taxes. Isn't that super? That's almost as low as my capital gains tax rate. So, no matter where I make my money, I'm not going to pay taxes. And of course they have the infinite year exemption. I lose money in 1 year. I go to Las Vegas and I lose some money. It's okay because I just write it off my future asset wins, the taxes. So I don't pay any taxes on my future win because I had a day where I lost. And they call that risk. This is some kind of risk when their risk is completely paid for by their victories.
The United States have done this. The United Kingdom's done this. This is Switzerland saying they've done it. We know that Japan...
Yeah, and this is the joke. He's insulting the United States, right? Calling us all a bunch of fat boobs. And here you are all following along. You're sitting there lapdogging, eating this vomit of this financial chicanery. You Europeans are falling for this crap that the rich are somehow in your interest, like they're looking after you, like they give a fuck about you. You fucking idiotic dupes.
Done it.
I mean, fucking your prime minister in England was fucking George Bush's lackey. I mean, he just said, "Okay, go ahead and murder people." Yeah, oh yeah, I'm a liberal. I'm the Liberal Party or whatever the fuck it's actually called. And this fucking cunt was sitting there just licking up anything George Bush vomited.
And the European Central Bank has done it. Basically, most all of the Western world has done it. So if you want to have any sort of conspiracy...
Yes, they're all banks. Yeah, they're all banks run by rich people. So yeah, they find out, hey, you have a gimmick that fucks the working man? Yeah, let me know about it because we want to get richer too. That's all we are, is gluttonous fucking pigs. So anyway, we make the rich richer and we make those fucking workers work more for less. That's just fucking great. It's not a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy of fucking cockroaches are cockroaches. The rich are fucking cockroaches. They've infested our fucking decent home, and we should do the right thing and call raid.
Theory. It has got to involve everybody. But I think we can say that what we have is...
Yeah, what we have is idiocracy. You've imported a bunch of dumbasses who are just going Jesus, Jesus, or Mohammed, Mohammed, and they're too stupid to figure out they're getting raped, okay, by these rich assholes. Yes, in the 1970s and 80s, it seemed that rational Democrats would stand up and say, and Republicans and rational people would say, hey, wait a minute, isn't this deficit spending basically just child rape? Aren't you just raping your children and saying, let's put it on the credit card and then we'll give the credit card when it's full, we'll give it to our kid. And say, you work it off, asshole. Isn't it fucking obvious what you're doing? Yeah, it's fucking obvious. So 30 years ago, somehow it was obvious to a rational person that, yes, you're raping your children. That's right. There's no other way to look at it. That's exactly what it is. They get all the pain. You get all the gain. No other way to look at it. It can't possibly be thought of any other way. The evidence is clear. All right, and somehow everybody got too fucking stupid to see that obvious fucking fact. And now they're so invidious in shoving that money in your kids' pockets that they're hiding it in FDIC insurance and hiding it in Federal Reserve accounts. They're hiding, they're fucking selling you to the fucking, you have been sold to the masters. You've been sold. Your work, your industry has been sold. You've been sold out by these bastards. These bearded fucking old stinky greedy tarts.
A lot of well-meaning people that have done what they thought was the best in what they thought was a very tricky.
So he says this is what Bernanke was doing, and all these banksters. They're just looking out after the civilization and all of our public interest, and they didn't just engineer a way to force the stock market up by buying the crap off of it and protecting the rich from bankruptcy, because if one rich guy goes really bankrupt, that means they're all going to start cascading because they're all living on fucking fake wealth.
Situation. And that is what we have now. And
no, they were just trying to help, and they were so sincerely just trying to help the regular American people. Bernanke.
Distortion, I'll finish here, getting on for 16 minutes. And I might talk about it more if I feel inspired, is...
Yes, he made his second video, and it's all just gibberish, you know, where he doesn't get really to the point. Well, you shouldn't have all of this class warfare because it's totally unnecessary to think that the rich people are just overtly greedy bastards and they're just going to try to rape the fuck out of you wherever possible, when that's exactly what they do.
That interest rates have been too low for too long.
Yes, they've only been too low for 10 years. So let's understand, interest rates had to go down because there was no way to finance the debt burden. You can't sell the bonds at a decent price. It's too expensive to have new debt. That's why interest rates had to go down.
This has caused problems.
You can't give tax cuts to the rich, lower revenues, and somehow pay off your credit card interest payments. So you have to make something go away temporarily, and it can't be permanent. So again, it's just pushing the problem onto the future. It's just taking the toxic waste, give it a new name, okay, which is fuck you in the ass, you future little turds, you're dead. That's all you've done. You just said, okay, it's not toxic waste, it's kill your kids. And maybe we'll say it in Japanese and nobody will know that's what it actually is. It's like the goddamn aliens who came here with their fucking book and it says how to serve mankind. And it's a fucking cookbook. These assholes are writing a cookbook, fuckers. Alright, this is the fucking goddamn aliens. They're here to eat you, to kill you, to consume you, to kill you. That's what they're here for, these elitist pricks. They think they're entitled to more. They already have it all, and they want more. They want to actually drink your fucking blood.
Distortions. And if I do go on, I will iterate a few of the main distortions, which it will take probably a couple of generations to get over.
Yeah, a couple of generations. There's no getting over it. This was all done for short-term gain for one generation. They don't care about the future. Obviously, it can't be gotten over. It's like saying Japan gets over having a yen that's worth toilet paper. You don't get over it. It's catastrophic. It's unrepairable. Once you start going down this idiotic print the cash mode, you're done. You're finished. And that's where we are, essentially. There's no way to pay the debt back. All there is rackets to figure out how we suck their blood. You know, not too much blood. Like the Japanese. Just suck almost too much blood. You know, just enough to keep them fucking alive. These fucking vampires. That's all they're doing. They're calculating how they can keep their victims alive as long as possible and suck as much blood as possible. That's the only math they're doing. That's the only calculations they care about. They're evil fucks.
But I'll finish this video by saying all this banking stuff is not a problem in and of itself.
Right. So selling your kids to the slave to the whatever the selling them onto the slave boat isn't a problem. It's a perfectly rational thing to do. Fuck the next generation. My generation matters. That's perfectly rational thinking. No, it's evil, it's crap, and you're a fucking idiot to sit there and preach that this was anything other than evil, malicious theft.
They, the central banker people, have got over big problems by doing tricky things.
Yes, by doing, he calls them tricky things, but he doesn't mean they're tricky in a bad way. They're tricky in some sort of fun way. It's fun to hide deficits. It's fun to destroy FDIC insurance, the only protection you have against 1929 crash. Yeah, it's fun to destroy all the mechanisms that people have paid in for decades, Social Security, all this stuff. It's fun to just destroy all of that.
Things, and it has not been free for them either. They have still got problems to get over.
Yeah, the only problem they got to get over is that a few people are like me are smart enough to know exactly what's taken place, and you know they're never ever going to be susceptible to sitting there and buying this babble that comes out of the DNC or something. You know that somehow they have the right balance. You know, yeah, they're never going to fall for that crap like the average dupe. Oh, it's in your interest. Your pension is in the stock market, so you want the stock market to go up because that's the worker man market. That market is about you being empowered. I mean, it's like the fucking black churches, you know, where they just talk all of this Jesus was for capitalism crap. I mean, this is just so insidious how they have completely warped the brain, okay, of rational people who give a fuck about work having value.
But we're leaving that aside because what I'm saying is they are not particularly in trouble and they are not going to cause us directly anymore.
They're not in trouble. That's right, because they've won every battle. They've completely pulled the wool over the eyes. They've deceived everybody into thinking there was some sort of rational economics because everybody thinks, well, the stock market went up. It doesn't go up if it was completely fake. You know.
Trouble. The financial crisis was a financial crisis. And these guys have done things, we can say it's helped or not, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter. See, how can somebody say something that's retarded? It doesn't matter whether it's helped or not. It's not a subject. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter whether it's toxic waste or fun cookies. It makes no difference. Go ahead and eat it anyway. How is this? I mean, he's so lost in his complete nonsense that he can say something this retarded. It doesn't matter whether it worked or not. It doesn't matter whether it has any kind of rational, sustainable function. It doesn't matter whether it's full of dynamite and it's going to blow your fucking dick off. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you feel invulnerable, you fucking piece of shit.
They have done things, and the things they've done. That they are kind of over it. And there is not...
They are over it. Right, they won. That's right. Complete fucking victory. They've completely screwed the working man and anybody else, okay? Anybody but the rich, they've completely fucked you royal. That's right. So they have nothing to worry about because they got enough money to buy enough mercenaries to kill the poor if they ever get rowdy.
Going to be another financial crisis because they've got unfinished business of their very...
Yeah, and there's no more gimmicks. I mean, what are you going to do? Put $10 trillion in the reserve accounts? $20 trillion in the reserve accounts? Huh? Oh, you're going to FDIC insure another $10 trillion worth of defunct crappy stocks to protect the rich from their honest bankruptcies? What's the new gimmick going to be? No taxes for the rich.
Own. The crisis are the ripples that go out via things like interest rates being too low for too long. That is the problem. In and of itself,
that isn't the problem. I mean, realistically, that isn't the problem. As long as inflation stays low, then you don't need interest. So he doesn't even get that fucking easy part of the equation. That low interest rates are okay if you have no pricing power. it's not ideal in the sense that we need to get wages up, and that can't happen without interest rates going up. So that's a downside. But it's just stupid to say that there's something intrinsically wrong. No, it's always the differential. The differential is important. Okay, wages compared to inflation, that's important. Interest rates going up, he's just saying, yes, it's always important that the rich can make capitalist gains. What's the word? Usury. It's always important that their usury stay high for the rich, that they can keep demanding a huge profit for their held assets so they don't have to go to work ever. They just sit there and let their assets do the work, and the assets don't get taxed at the same rate that the person sweating does. The person dying in the coal mine, he pays real taxes. No, my silo of wheat doesn't pay any taxes. It just makes me richer. His buried gold in his fucking goddamn yard is more important than the working man's welfare.
The central banks really don't have what we could call critical problems.
Well, they have critical problems because they don't have any more magic tricks. They're going to run out of the magic tricks, and all of this fucking debt that can't possibly be paid because wages are so low now, you can't even collect the money. You can't get any more blood out of the stone. The vampires have done well, and they've sucked all the blood that can be sucked. And so when it comes drought time, you don't have any more victims. And so now you're going to be the ones that start feeding too hard on your victims, and like the dumbass tick that gives them diseases and kills them, you're going to kill your food bag. Okay, the goose, you're going to cook it. You're going to cook the goose that lays the golden eggs and eat it, and then your game will be done.
They've got to go to work, and they've really got to think about things where in the past they could probably get out and play golf at 3 o'clock and have a long holiday.
So none of this makes any sense. Obviously, their crisis in 2010, they were basically in tears talking about how, you have to do something. We're all going to go bankrupt. So it's just idiotic. Like they hadn't had to work. They did have to do some gimmickry. They had to work really hard to pull this wool over everybody's eyes.
But now they've got to go to work and really work. But they're all right.
So he just says they're all right, everything's fine, they're not going to be doing anything, and then he says in the exact same sentence, a sentence later, they have to go to work and they have to do this and that. They don't have to go to work. They obviously can fool the people all of the time. Trump got elected. Everybody knew who he was. Everybody knew what a liar and a crook he was in his personal behavior. He didn't pay workers. Everybody knew what he was, and they voted for this lunatic because they hated foreigners so fucking much.
But what they've done has created these distortions that we outside the castle have to live with. And it's important.
We don't have to live with them. That's the whole point. No, we should be repulsed and disgusted and humiliated that we're allowed these aliens to show up with their how to serve mankind lies. These fake Democrats and their fake lies about how they give a fuck about the common man, all right, when they're eating dinner at Trump's house.
That we know what they have done, and they're...
You don't know what they've done. You've just said they haven't done anything. It's not a big deal. I mean, how can you even say this shit? It doesn't make any sense. You think there's no problem. You've sold your kids to the slave, trader, and what's wrong with that? Isn't that perfectly rational?
The factual things that they have done. So we know we can ignore it now to a greater extent. And if we need to refer back to it... Yeah, we've
sold the kids, so fuck it. Let's just move on with our fun retirement because we sold the kids to the slave owner, the slave trader. So our job is done here. Let's just go golfing. God, you people
to say, think of things that we can suggest to do to ameliorate the situation of the distortions that have been caused. We understand their system better.
You understand nothing. He doesn't understand any system. He doesn't even know what currency is. He's a truther kook.
But we can put them aside now, knowing what they do, what they've done, and it's interesting.
Okay, it's just interesting. It's interesting when you sell your kids to slave traders. When you sit there and create huge, giant, gluttonous piggery, you put it all on the credit card, and then you shove the credit card in somebody else's pocket, and then you just get a new credit card, fill it up, shove it in somebody else's pocket. That is just so. Yeah, who doesn't think that's the right way to live?
It's always interesting to know the facts. But basically, we can put them away in a box and know that we have to live with the ripples that are going out, and they particularly aren't
No,
going to cause any more
stated,
great splashes.
there's only two solutions here. You either preserve the working man's life, or you preserve the elitist rich man's abuse of the working man. You either endorse rape, or you say no. Let's go back to a fair economy where people go to work and get paid a decent wage, and we live next door to each other and are able to afford to cut our grass and do things and live in civilization. Yeah, let's fuck giving all the money to the rich and all the resources to the rich and creating this stupid goddamn fiefdom where they build castles and monuments and pyramids like Pharaoh. They'll build pyramids to themselves, and we'll all die, smushing the bricks together. Fuck that. Fuck that is the thing to say. Fuck that. God, you suck. Oh, piece of old grizzly shit.
Hello.
So
Now this is the following.
So he just bibbles and babbles about intergenerational warfare is not a very nice thing, and oh no, the stinking rich people didn't mean to be malicious and horrible and greedy and gluttonous and just completely overkill in their taking and stealing of your welfare. No, they just did it accidentally, trying to do the right thing. That's how they stole all your money. What a pile of fucking shit.
And the more it goes on, the more this lot have to fight, the more they will leverage their assets and their haves, and the more the have-nots will lose. And it'll just accelerate. We're starting to see it now.
Yes, it'll accelerate if the rational people don't say, well, that's a dumb idea. Let's not do that. So, yeah, let's, as fast as we can, yeah, let's get rational and realize, oh yeah, it was always a dumb idea. Deficit spending was always a dumb idea. It didn't just become one, it was always toxic.
Accelerating away, where, as it says in another of these comments, it really doesn't matter so much now how talented you are at all. What matters in life is whether your parents, grandparents, etc. can leverage their assets for you.
Right, if you can get something out of this inheritance thing. So again, he's all for it. Somehow this is the way our civilization should accept, that this is the way things have to be. They don't have to be this way. Rational people can have a conversation about how you don't do that in the Olympics, you don't do that in football, you don't do that in baseball. No, you have honest games, you have fairness, you reward people for their achievements, for their hard work. Yes, that's the system we want. We want a meritocracy. We want something where merit matters. Deserve has everything possible that we can make. If we can make deserve have everything to do with it, that's what we want to do. Deserve has everything to do with it, rather than the idiotic country we have now where deserve has nothing to do with it, where it's completely just based on this idiotic circumstance of what jackass vagina you fall out of decides whether you play a good game or a bad game. Yes, that is rubbish. We shall say that's rubbish, and that way it gets fixed. Instead, this asshole says, yes, that's rubbish, but I'm not going to say it. Okay, I'm not going to tell anybody that. I'm not going to emphasize that. I'm just going to delete any video where I ever suggested that. I'm just going to sit there and endorse some dopey idea that, yes, we'll just have to sell our grandchildren to pay off our grandchildren's slavery debt, and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren. We'll just keep killing them so we can make rich people richer, so we can build more castles for the rich. Gold plate their fucking toilets. It's not even gold plated. They're going to be made out of actual gold.
You are not likely to win assetless with a big brain against assets with a lesser brain. It is not a meritocracy.
Right, and we should be. So again, is that a too hard a statement to say? Oh, look, we found the obvious flaw. We have a system where it's not about deserve having anything to do with it. So we rationally should say yes, deserve should have something to do with it. Just like the Olympics, just like baseball, just like football, just like all these other things, deserve should have something to do with the outcome.
It has very quickly slipped into what it was 100 years ago. But the important
No, it slipped into what it was 500 years ago. This is monarchy. We are just being ruled by inheritance owners. You just inherit your position in the world. That's what it is. It's 500 years ago. 100 years ago was bad, but wasn't as bad as it is now. The rich have never been as rich as they are now. They're richer than they were in 1925, and they were insanely rich then.
part is that the slip is like an avalanche. It will very, very quickly accelerate and take on an awful lot more weight and completely run away with itself.
Well, whatever. That doesn't even mean anything. Like I said, quite obviously, the opposing agenda. Stop it. Stop it. The opposing agenda is lost. It's leaderless. Somehow, again, the whole March on Wall Street, they just start eating pizza and then clueless, spinning around in circles. They had no fucking plan, no way to fix anything. Just a bunch of wasted energy because the leadership is corrupt, because the spies have infiltrated the labor parties and perverted them into the fucking Republican Party. Just a version of.
And what is politics to do with this? As in, what can politics do about this? It has got to get elected. How is it going to get elected to do something about this? It has to appeal to one.
Yeah, well, it's not going to work, right? Because they've been so clever. They've taken the Democratic Party, the Labor Party, that was against immigration, and they've perverted it into some sort of open border free for all, like every immigrant's a wonderful person and he's doing wonderful things because he's ruining all of our wages. He's scabbing us into fucking poverty. Somehow Democrats think that's rational now, which is, yes. So, frankly, there's not going to be any war because the fucking the people being raped are so fucking stupid that they can't just figure out how to make a pointy stick and do the right thing. They're so dupable. They've been convinced by these assholes that somehow take the pointy stick and shove it up your own ass. That's how you win the war. Shove the pointy stick up your own ass.
Side or the other to get elected and then do something to stop this. How is this to happen?
Whatever. Oh, thumbs up. Yeah, everything's just swell. That's right. You're in your protected class lifestyle. You don't have to worry about being on the street or any of that shit in your retirement. So yeah, just say, well, this is all academic conversation. This isn't about real people being ruined. No, it's not about real people being worked to death. This isn't about a fucking system that can't possibly take care of the majority of people and will just fucking grind them up. No, that's all something to thumb up. God, I hate your guts. Stupid old fucking farty piece of crap. Talking this drivel. Alright, so here's the comments he evaded. Just so this one I thought was really good. So he made this stupid video on currency. Why don't you just, if everybody got cash from the bank, everything would stay exactly the same. Like you could give everybody gold, or you could give everybody any commodity. You can't give everybody cash and still call it cash because instead of $1.9 trillion in circulation, you'd have $48 trillion in circulation. Cash really wouldn't be worth anything. All right. You really don't understand currency at all. Its value is in its limited supply. So again, all of these idiots who get the rich man poor man thing, but who don't even understand what cash is. They don't even understand that the cash hasn't been printed. No cash has been printed to pay bills. Ugh. Like gold, everyone can't cash out at it at once. As supply shrinks, the demand price increases. So that's right. If there's less of something, then you can ask for a higher price for it. Okay, if there's one of these in the world, I can ask a lot more money for it than if there's 7,000 of them in the world. Duh. All right, cash merely facilitates barter. That's all it's intended to do. It is not intended to be owned. It's not a commodity. It's not a silo of wheat. It's not a diamond ring. It's not any of that crap. It's not an asset. It's a placeholder for assets. It's just to facilitate transactions. That is why its value should always slightly deflate. Right, the whole point of cash is that you want it to go down in value by like 1% a year at least. Just so nobody puts it under their mattress because they know, oh, if I put it on my mattress for 5 years, I lose 5% of my value. So maybe I should put something else under my mattress because putting cash on it would be a bad idea. That's how cash works. It doesn't work if it gets more valuable. That's why Bitcoin was retarded. It can't work because it doesn't have a definite and durable value. Its value goes all over the damn place. And no rational person says, I'm going to go to the grocery store today and I might be able to get 10 bags of potatoes with my money. And if I go tomorrow, I'll get 5 bags. And if I go Thursday, I'll get 7 bags. Nobody wants to do the math to figure out what day they're supposed to go to the store. The only thing that makes cash important is that it is the king's or best barter paper. It's the best paper you can get. The government will always give you 10 sheep for $1 kind of a thing. They establish what it is worth. They will give you what it's worth. Even if they don't have a ton of gold, it's essentially the same thing. They're basically saying, yes, the dollar will give you value. All right, and to be best paper, it must not be printed beyond its service need in the economy. So this is the part where he's playing this stupid speech by that stupid Swiss banker guy, and they're talking about how, well, the Federal Reserve just lets the money out during Christmas, so more money is in the economy, and then takes the money back in. You won't see any of that in the statistics. The line doesn't go jumping all over the place like that. That shit never happens. They've never used cash for that purpose. They've only used cash to buy, to keep commodity prices up, to keep the rich richer. They don't use cash to protect you from inflation. See, inflation would be real easy to defeat in a crisis if the federal government just buys some cash off the market and holds it, doesn't spend it. Then the cash goes up in value, then your cash has more purchasing power. So inflation could be completely controlled just by controlling the amount of cash in circulation, but it requires a government that doesn't just keep borrowing money, but actually every now and then pays a bill. QE is about printing debt paper, bank checks, collateralized by the promise of reserve cash. So that's the important thing, right? The bankers issued the checks, bought the resources off the market, and we collateralize that loan with this $4.4 trillion, okay? And yes, eventually it's your money, maybe, if we don't sell the stuff we bought. And how do we sell? What happens when we try to sell it? See, in a crisis, we're just going to be sitting here with a whole bunch of extra assets to put on the market. We're not going to be able to have to buy anything off the market because we've already done that. We have a ton of bonds that we want to sell, and we can't sell them because no one will buy them without a higher interest rate. All right, QE is nothing more than deficit spending. So clearly, QE is nothing more than deficit spending to prop up the commodity markets by buying assets off the open market. QE is nothing more than deficit spending to prop up the commodity market, not deficit spending to give kids cancer therapy, not deficit spending to even pay welfare whores. No, it's deficit spending to make the stock market go up by buying assets off the open market. Okay, so they deficit spend, they increase the working man's taxes, they decrease the rich man's taxes, okay, And and this idiot mystic thinks this is no harm, no foul. So I got no response to that. He deleted the video without responding to the comment. Stupid putz. All right, so the other comment I left I thought was pretty much okay. All right, so the mystic basically said it's not really a problem for anyone. So that's a quote from his comment. Okay, and I said using reserve accounts and FDIC insurance to hide debt, okay, is a problem. So when you hide your deficits, you don't really say to the public, look, okay, Obama, the big liar, oh, look, my deficit's only half as bad as Bush's. Yeah, because half your deficit is in the FDIC insurance account, in the FDIC reserve account, and you're not counting it. So why don't you tell the truth, liar? So when they say we're $17 trillion in debt, it's a lie. Okay, we're $25 trillion or $30 trillion in debt. All right, the amount of money you are mortgaged, okay, to the federal government as the average working man in America, the average working man, okay, is well over $500,000 of debt. Do you think you can pay that with a night job? All right, especially when the next bubble starts leaking, the government will not be able to control interest rates or inflation. Inflation of the value of the currency. Rates are inflation, deflation of the value of the currency. So they can't control it if all they have again is stuff to sell and they have no resources to buy. Okay, if in a crisis it has to issue massive amounts of new debt. So in a crisis, the government's going to start feeling the pinch. The revenue's not going to be coming in. It's got to issue more debt. What does that mean? Interest rates have to go up. Okay, to fix the problem created by QE and the FDIC junk bond bailout. So all of this is a huge compromise of the future's interest for the short-term gain, which was save the bankers, save the banksters. So to save the banksters from what they deserved, to save the rich from the correction in the market they deserved, to stop their bubble from bursting, the rich man's bubble from bursting, they have fucking taken a dagger through the heart of the future. It was all for short-term gain. Fuck the future. That's all it was, is a policy. That's all it ever was. It was just theft by a bunch of greedy bastards. Nothing else. So I'll read the fucking idiotic comment the mystic left. The Fed has been working on this for years now. No, it's just 10 years. It is not an obvious problem. No, deficit spending is obvious, okay, and hiding it is obviously chicanery. But it is obviously a problem. Right, it's not an obvious problem, but it is obviously a problem. What part of the problem are you acknowledging? The main problem for the Fed is to get back control of interest rates. Well, again, that boat has sailed. Now that we're $25 trillion in debt, how can you control interest rates when you have to sell a ton of debt on the market? And you have to give people, the greedy people, are going to say, I want more interest. Okay. For the banks and reserves are not a problem. For the banks, the reserves are not a problem. So again, he still doesn't understand that these reserves have nothing to do with it being the bank's money. That's why it's still in the reserve accounts. Bankers don't leave $4.4 trillion in an account somewhere, collecting 0.025 interest. They don't do that if it's their money. Reserves are the best asset a bank can have. Again, it's hilarious. They think it's actually a bank asset. They think the reserve money can actually be, he thinks it can be cashed by the banks, cashed out. Basically, it is not really a problem for anyone. Yes, deficit spending isn't a problem for anyone. It is, buying it on the credit card and screwing your kids is not a problem. It is just not how it used to be. and is taking a bit of getting used to. Oh, no, it is how it used to be in the sense that it's still deficit spending. It's just that they've gotten so dishonest about it, they're not even admitting it when they're doing it. They're hiding it, okay, in FDIC insurance, the ruining of that program, and hiding it in reserve accounts. So people don't think it's real debt. It's real debt. It's as real and as hard as any bond issued debt. Again, it is not really a big problem for anyone. Deficit spending isn't a problem, nor is it likely to become one. Having me as a person who doesn't, I'm certainly a no account, but I mean, technically, I'm, vulnerable to being considered one of the people who have to pay this money back. This $500,000 I owe that I never voted for, of course, to be borrowed in the first place. That's not a problem. Me owing $500,000, that's somehow not a problem. Yeah, it's a fucking problem, asshole. They will rejig things to make for a new normal. And again, the normal is the the banksters create a system that keeps feeding income to the rich. The rich keep getting richer. That's all it's for. That's all this system is built to do. Keep the rich richer. Rich making more money. Rich people richer. That somehow is good for you. No, it is not good for you. Yes, it looks a bit odd now, but there's no real problem. You just keep saying it over and over. There's no problem. Nor is it likely to become a big problem. So again, 30,000 to $30 trillion in debt, it's just not a problem. You're just being a silly person to think debt is somehow a problem. Debt is not a problem. It's never a problem to sit there and just get yourself a credit card, spend to the max, and just drop it in the wastebasket because it doesn't mean anything. You don't have to pay the money back. They are dealing with a new situation and have to tread carefully, whatever that means. They don't have to tread carefully, quite obviously. Where is Trump treading carefully? They are banksters. He called them bankers. So they will tread carefully. Again, it's just hilarious. There's no caution in this at all. They put the whole economy in this on this frickin' tiny little. It's totally unstable. They've House of Cards, the foundation of our civilization. They're playing a incredibly reckless and messy game, sitting there shoving all that money in those reserve accounts. Because if it ever gets loose, if through some idiotic moron Trump mistake, Trump decides, well, it is the bankers' money, they should spend it, and he lets that cash loose, okay, big problem. Anyway, all right, enough of a rant. God, these people are so disgusting. These defenders of this fucking racket system of entitlement without earning. It's just disgusting.